Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I know you're here because you want natural solutions to your fertility health. And in case you're new to my community, hello, my name is Michaela. I'm fully qualified holistic practitioner and I specialize in natural fertility. After going through a similar journey myself, I'm more committed than ever to helping other families achieve their family goals using my fertility blueprint, which is a unique method to help decode the underlying cause of infertility without invasive procedures such as IUI and IVF. I'm always trying to see what other health practitioners use to help their clients, and I want to share that with you as well. So you have as many resources as possible to reach your health goals. Now, today's guest is a published author, a speaker, and a naturopathic doctor known for helping anxious, overwhelmed, and exhausted successful women to feel more in control and more like themselves. She's passionate about helping her clients make changes that result in better sleep, better mood, better digestion, better hormone balance, and overall happier brain. Welcome, Dr. Fleury, a mom of three. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, Mahela, thank you so much for having me. You have a beautiful story and a beautiful gift. I can tell just the way that you work with your clients. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your community because I honor the fact that we work as a holistic community together. We create synergy when we come together and share our knowledge and our passion and our expertise. So I thank you for having me here today.
Thank you. Well, as you know, my audience is really looking to balance their hormones so they can achieve healthy pregnancy. As well as your customers also, they look to balance their hormones so they can have better moods, better sleep, better digestion, right? So having imbalance in our hormones obviously leads to many different issues that bring us suffering. Can you please talk a little bit about what you first do when you see a patient that walks in your virtual office, for example?
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, what's interesting about the concept of hormone health is that it's often the chicken and the egg. So we're often wondering, is it the hormones that cause us to go out of balance, or do we got to go out of balance and that affects our hormones? And when we think about hormone health, we often immediately think about hormones like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and DHA, because when we think about our hormones going out of whack, we think about those hormones being related to our menstrual cycle and to obviously to fertility, as that would be what you're working with. But some of the more important hormones are the hormones in our system that are connected to inflammation. And that is oftentimes where I start working with my clients, is to understand what might be driving inflammation in their systems. And when we think about inflammation, we think about things swollen or things being like a joint being swollen, or we think about maybe something going on where we've got swollen tissues or puffy eyes. But inflammation runs so much deeper than that. And a lot of that inflammation is seated in our gut, in our digestive tract. So my training is as a naturopathic doctor, and one of our tenets is to treat the cause and to remove obstacles to heal. Our bodies are incredibly powerful healers, and we self-heal when we give our bodies the opportunity to do so. So oftentimes we're blocked, whether that's because of our environment. So there could be external stresses on our system, but we also generate a lot of internal stress, not just from our psychology, but also chemically biochemically, and our bodies produce their own its own degree of impurities and toxins. That's just what it does. That's part of our metabolism. So root cause resolution, getting to the root of what might be triggering an imbalance in those hormones that we think of: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. But even below that or beneath that is a more deep-seated hormonal imbalance, which is related to our inflammatory hormones.
Thank you. That was really very interestingly put. And I wanted to ask you, how do you go about finding the core and removing those blockers?
It's a good question. What I'm looking for is the typical signs and symptoms that are going to bring somebody in for help. So they might not be sleeping very well. They may not be digesting well. So they may have gas or bloating, heartburn, constipation, diarrhea, brain fog. They're not, they're tired. Their energy is low all the time. And oftentimes they'll say to me that, you know what, I just don't feel like myself. Things that never used to bother me now bother me. I don't seem to be coping as well as I used to. And they also have typically been to their doctors, maybe had some blood work done and everything looks fine. So they're maybe told that, well, you know, you're getting older, or you're stressed, or you've got, you know, kids at home, or you've got, you know, a lot of, you're overworking. There's all these sorts of explanations that really don't address why they may be feeling the way they're feeling. And their intuition knows, they know there's something more there that's out of balance, but they just can't put their finger on it.
Yeah, the doctor says, just relax, just relax. That brings a lot more stress. Yes, totally. So, what do you do when, what is the first thing that you do with them, for example, to start getting them to a healthier path? Are you able to suggest something that maybe our listeners can start implementing?
Well, if you think about your gut and your digestive tract, and you think about hormones, 90% of your feel-good hormones are located in your gut. And so serotonin would be one of those hormones that I'm referring to. And that hormone goes on to be converted to other hormones. And it's one of many important neurotransmitters in your system. And there's a two-way communication that happens between your gut and your brain. So it's like you've got two brains. You've got the brain in your head, in your skull, and then you've got your second brain, which is in your gut. And that two-way communication is really vital to an overall sense of balance in your body. And 70% of your immune system is in your gut. So if we focus on the gut, we can check a lot of boxes in terms of overall health improvement by just working on the health of your gut. So if you think about your gut as if it's a garden, and in that garden you have weeds and you have flowers and then you have compost, that's the food that you put into your gut every day. We really want to make sure that we've got a healthy balance between the good and the bad. And you have 6 to 8 pounds of microbes, and we call that the microbiome. And this community of microbes really has a lot to say about the decisions we make on a day-to-day basis. So it's 50% of our DNA. So we're only 50% human, and we're 50% this other community, this dynamic community. So we really have to work at taking care of that community, because if we don't nurture it, it's going to come back to bite us, in the sense that we feel out of balance. Our serotonin production drops, and our brain maybe doesn't feel as good, or we're not sleeping as good, or our moods are out of whack, or we've got that brain fog that we talk about. So one of the tips that we can start with would be making sure that we have a healthy amount of good guys in the gut. So we want lots of flowers flourishing in our garden. So fermented foods are a great way to start. If you've got access to a good quality unpasteurized sauerkraut or kimchi or kefir, those are loaded with really good bacteria. And then we want to feed the microbes that are already there, that are already healthy and robust. And that's where fiber comes in. So if we don't have enough fiber in our diet, as we digest the food that we eat, by the time the food gets to our colon, if there's no fiber there, there's no food for the microbiome. So we could be starving that community of microbes that's there to take care of us and to take care again of our hormones and our overall sense of immunity and well-being. So fermented foods and fiber. So things like ground flaxseed, hemp hearts. I actually learned from a client of mine, I had never heard of this, and maybe you've heard of this, but there is a seed called basil seed. Have you heard of this?
No, basil
So
seed.
it's
Okay.
similar to chia seeds, but
Mhm.
they're actually healthier from the perspective that they don't have lectins. So they're more
Uh-huh.
digestible and less damaging to your intestinal tract. So that was a new one to me, but I thought that was really interesting that they are higher in fiber and healthy fats. And so,
And you also have to grind them. Oh, okay, I see.
so
Yeah,
and I think the brand
I've
name,
seen them. Yes, I've seen them. I didn't know they were basil seeds. Okay.
is that what they're called? You looked it up and it's basil seed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I just So
Yeah.
they soak them mainly because the chia and the flax, you want them grind, especially the flax, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
And soaked for sure, it hydrates them
yeah.
because many people have dehydrated digestive tracts. So that added fiber can actually make them feel constipated and kind of bunged up. So for sure, the hydrated fiber is a good idea. So, but even those, having a better bowel movement, having a soft formed, easy to pass stool 1 or 2 times a day, decreasing your gas and bloating, it just makes you feel better in your skin overall. And oftentimes you are your appetite is more balanced, so you're less inclined to crave sugars and carbohydrates and those sorts of foods that are like throwing fire onto, like gasoline onto a fire if you already have an imbalance in your gut microbiome.
Mhm. Yeah. So for those that say, I don't have constipation, I go every other day to the back. What do what do you say to those people?
Well, that's constipation, because if you're not having a soft formed easy pass bowel movement 1 to 2 times a day, and it should look like a good sized log, and there should be no pain, and it should feel complete. Most people think they're having a good bowel movement until I describe to them what it actually should be like. And then when they make these changes and they'll report back to me and they're like, oh, that's what a good poop is all about. So, yeah.
Right. And uh, when they start feeding their microbiome and their gut, how fast would they see change in their bowel movement and in their sleep and in their moods?
Well, oftentimes they see changes immediately in their bowel movements, and they overall feel, I mean, within days, as long as they're, they're drinking enough water with things like flaxseed and hemp hearts and chia seeds, those sorts of things. And the fermented foods, I mean, again, you can see positive effects within days. As it relates to the sleep and maybe some of the brain fog, sometimes they need a little bit of additional support in terms of weeding the garden, so to speak. So there are certain herbs and certain botanicals, and even MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides, they can have a really nice anti-fungal effect in the gut. So that's an opportunity to mix that oil in with your flax, let's say, making a little bit of a cocktail in the morning with the MCT and the flax and mixing that into water and drinking it. So even those little minor changes can make a big difference in how they feel in their guts and in their lower abdomen. And when we think about the uterus and the ovaries, blood flow and the health of that whole pelvic region is often compromised when the gut is sluggish, right? We've got a sluggish gut, we've got a sluggish liver, and here we are trying to prepare the terrain for a baby to grow. So we want that area not irritated by a bunch of gas and bloating.
Yeah. And can I ask you, I know you deal a lot with women, but right? The same principles they apply to men as well, right? In order to have a healthy gut, healthy sperm.
Oh, 100%. And really, when you think about even, so we're talking about the microbiome and that being its own community, its own ecosystem, but the vagina is its own community and its own ecosystem. And it is, in my experience, and I certainly don't profess to be an expert or specialist in fertility, but I have helped women conceive over the years, or inadvertently, I maybe didn't know
Right.
they were wanting to get pregnant, but they have come to me with, let's say, chronic yeast infections or chronic bacterial vaginosis or urinary tract infections. And when we change the environment of the vagina by doing exactly what I've talked about, plus some local treatments, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, and we treat the partner, because the partner, the couple can be passing, even asymptomatically passing, like a low grade imbalance, a dysbiosis, a bacteria or a yeast, and they can be just transmitting it back and forth unknowingly. And again, that is inflammatory. So not only is the male inflamed, but the female is inflamed too. And again, that is not going to be a friendly environment for sperm.
Yeah, exactly. Fertilize the ground before it flourishes, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And you've written a book. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, the book is my, that was in an attempt to evergreen myself. And I came up with the idea several years ago when I realized that I was saying the same, I was sharing the same principles over and over again. And I thought, what if I just wrote all this down and I turned how I coach people into a practical guide. And so that's exactly what it is. It was designed as a small book. It's not, hundreds and hundreds of pages, but really what I've done is I've taken my top 3 teachings and recommendations, and I've given some background as to why it is that I practice and recommend this approach. And I turned it into a practical guide so that all the busy people in this world that I want to support with the information, you can read it start to end in a couple of hours. And so there's nothing that brings me greater joy when somebody says, hey, I read your book. I read your whole book yesterday. And they'll say, it makes a lot of sense. So really, I just wanted to get the information out in as practical a form as possible so that you can just get on with feeling better.
I'll put a link in the comments later to your book so people can have a look and maybe buy it. It's called Master Your Moods, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and another way to support people is you have a master class on Mastering Your Moods. Can you tell us more about it?
I put together a mini training session that helps women to understand that they can take charge of their moods. And really my moonshot, my mission in life is to empower women and anybody who wants to, or who's struggling with mood imbalances or anxiety, depression. There's a whole range of moods that we can experience that really interfere with our quality of life. But I really want to spread the message that there are signs that things are out of balance in your body that we don't connect to brain health. We think that the brain is independent of all these other things that go on, but they go hand in hand. And so my goal is to empower the world to recognize these signs early on and to understand that there are things that you can actively do that not only corrects your body, but also your emotions and your the way your brain feels. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd love us all to have happier brains because that helps improve all aspects. And it it brings people back to the core of who they are. And that's really what everybody seems to be looking for, is they just want to feel back to themselves. They want that old, you know, vibrant, happy, excited, passionate personality that oftentimes slowly slides away over time as we, you know, as we deal with the effects of our environment and our lifestyle and all of the other things that we deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, busy work environment, 9 to 5 jobs, coming home, running to cook dinner, clean, and everything. And there's no time to to step back and take a look and see what's the bigger picture of our imbalances, right?
Absolutely. And sometimes, well, we get, it's like a little, you know, the chimes ring lightly, and then all of a sudden the notifications get louder and louder. And all of a sudden, you know, we wake up one day and we can't get out of bed because, you know, something really significant is wrong. And it, you know, we don't need it to get that far. We can catch these things early if we know what to look for.
Yes. So because if you keep getting, for example, medication, it keeps coming in, then your body stops doing what it needs to do. It says, okay, the medication is gonna take care of me, right? And then it just gets worse and worse. And then one day, like you said, you're not able to get up. And then you're thinking, then what's next, right?
Absolutely. And at that point, there is a significant amount of energy and effort that now has to be invested in order to get just back to baseline, right? And baseline doesn't even necessarily mean that the person was in optimal health at that point. They just
Yeah.
need to get back to functioning. And then, so if we think about the river of health, we're downstream where it's all murky and congested and polluted, and then we're slowly swimming our way upstream so that we're proactive, that we're not just free of symptoms, but we're actually really living our best at our best health, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a continuum for sure.
Yeah. So just listen to the little nuances and take action. Be proactive, right? And start
And you
with
know,
the gut health.
absolutely. And those nuances are things that people deal with and maybe go to their doctor and are told, just like what you said about the bowel movement every second day, and they may be told by their doctor, well, whatever's normal is normal for you.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, and it might be normal, but it's not ideal. And there's a clear distinction between normal and ideal. So those symptoms that you would watch for would be skin conditions like
Yeah.
eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, acne. Then, of course, we've got the physical stuff. So the gas, bloating, heartburn, reflux, then the chronic aches and pains, the slow progressive weight gain, or can't get your rings off by the end of the day. These are all signs. These are significant signs that that is likely impacting the health of your brain and your emotional well-being. And those are the sorts of things that if you address the underlying cause, then the physical stuff clears up. But curiously, so does the emotional stuff. So when a patient comes to me and they say, you know, they come to me because they want to get rid of their skin rash, but all of a sudden they'll say to me, I feel, you know, I'm happier than I've been in years. They don't make that connection that what's going on with their skin is also affecting the health of their emotions. So that's why I wrote the book, really, because I saw the pattern so consistently that I wanted people to understand that in order to master your moods, you have to master all this other stuff first.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here and talking to us. And let us know, what is the best way to reach you?
Well, I'll certainly share the link to my masterclass. That's probably the best way
Okay.
to learn a little bit more about me. And I also have a free Facebook group, and we can put that link in the information as well. So they can follow me there and
Excellent.
get to know me a little bit better.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing this information with us and to speaking with us. So have
Thank
a
you for
wonderful
having me.
night.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.